It's getting ready. Okay, you're now live.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I'm Dave Cullen, and this is Lab Coat 10-Minute Labs. And we're going to try to get as much as we possibly can in these 10 minutes from the brilliant mind of John Reilly. John, thanks for being on today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
I'm going to start the clock. So you and I have a mutual friend in Tristan Ahumada and his partner who co-founded Lab Coat Agents. And as it turns out, it's a very high bar to get interviewed on this platform. So congratulations to you. And I want to congratulate you on your book that you wrote called The Language of Real Estate, which was written in 1975. And I believe it's in its 8th edition. So you want to talk to us a little bit about the language of real estate?
Well, actually, it is something that I'm most proud of because it started just from a basic 40-page glossary of terms when I was running a real estate school in Hawaii, and just kept adding words. I used one of those accordion folders, and if something came up on a lease option, I put it under the L's, and something came up under Praminal, I put it under the P's. So eventually, though, I published it, and I self-published it. And it was, I think I had about 1,000 terms in it. And it was self-published, which was an interesting phenomenon. I know Tristan is doing a lot of writing now, and I bet you he has targeted maybe, should he go to a publisher or should he self-publish? And I'll talk to him later about the merits of self-publishing. Although it was kind of rough, carrying tons of books around in the trunk of my car, delivering them to libraries and all of that. But then a national company, picked it up, and now it's a real dream because twice a year I get a royalty check, and I don't have to carry anything in the trunk of my car.
It's all digital now.
It's all, yep.
Well, we don't want to weigh you down too much with your wonderful lifestyle in Hawaii.
It is, it is kind of tough. My partner, Saul Klein, he's stuck now in San Diego, but eventually he wants to, I'm sure, get back to Hawaii because, unknown to a lot of people, Saul was actually born in Honolulu. And in fact, Saul and I met online. And one of the things I did was I helped him when he was going to come over here. He was going to talk about the Realtor.com because he was one of the first people in Realtor.com. So I got him lined up at a convention center, and we had 500 people show up for his talk. And he had he's a really lively speaker, and he had a great talk. But at the end of the talk, he converted and started to speak in Hawaiian Pidgin.
Oh my goodness!
And it just blew the minds of the audience to hear this guy who looks like typical Howley person. And but I will say the good thing that he did when he came over, he wore a lower shirt. Most of the speakers at that time would wear a tie, a coat and a tie, and everybody would say, "Take the tie off, just relax when you're giving the talk."
That's awesome. And I love the fact that you wrote this thing in 1975, and there's been 8 additions to it. So if you were to summarize in the short period of time that we have, what are the main points of evolution that what you've written in that book? Walk us through that a little bit, and then let's talk about what the future is going to look like in the industry for realtors and for consumers.
Well, of course, starting in the 1985 era, agency disclosure was a big thing. And I had first gotten into agency disclosure when I was practicing law here. And I had a broker come into my office and say, and this was in the late 70s. And he said, John, I really don't like to represent sellers, but I just want to represent buyers. Can I represent buyers? Is that legal? And I said, well, the seller pays the commission, so you're going to always represent the seller, and that could be a real problem. Well, that was just the start of the problem, because then we started to get into agency disclosure laws, which started to hold that you had better disclose maybe to the buyer you're talking to that you really represent the seller, not them. And of course, nobody could understand it. So then they came up with these agency disclosure laws. And the interesting thing was, I was working on agency disclosure laws, and at the same time in California, somebody I didn't know, a guy named Saul Klein, was working on the California agency disclosure laws. And Saul and I eventually hooked up online. You remember our broker, Peter Miller, had an AOL chat discussion group, and we started to exchange ideas, and one thing led to another. Saul and I decided to maybe go into some type of a partnership in regards to giving advice to real estate agents. And we did. We set up a company called Internet Crusade.
Okay.
And Saul's been on the forefront on it, because what we also did was we got involved with NAR in their ePro project, and so he and I worked on ePro, and we rewrote the course and then taught it for almost 10 years. And the only issue with that is, in order to get people to buy it, you had to go out there and talk to people. You can't just do it, with print.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it's just really nice that somebody like you and Saul have the brain power and the know-how to take all the information that's floating around out there that's potentially causing challenges with brokers, agents, and consumers, and then creating a resource for all of us to then go use and then edit it over time.
Well, thank you. It's that's what our goal is. That's what we try to do. And of course, right now we're wrestling with this major issue that's coming up with the Department of Justice. It looks like there's much of a downward pressure on commissions, and real estate agents need to stay attuned to it. I know that we'll be discussing some of that, in Lab Coat Agents. But that's going to be a big issue. Another issue is going to be independent contractor. It could be that in not too far away, agents are going to be employees and not necessarily, the independent contractors anymore. So there's governmental pressure coming at us all over the place.
And so the first thing that you mentioned was a ruling, I think, that just took place to disallow the MLS, or what's called offer of compensation, to cooperating brokers. And if that changes, what will that actually mean? Will that mean that buyer agent representation is no longer, or and maybe it's too early to speculate, but I think that's your first comment. Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is a little bit early to be certain what's going to happen, but you can see a trend there, and it is focused on the offer of compensation as being something mandatory within the NAR rules. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to be wiped out entirely. You could always, even if there wasn't an MLS and you were a broker and you had a client for a property, you could still talk story with the listing broker about sharing commissions, or about offering some type of compensation. The rub of it was actually making it mandatory. Under the antitrust rules that the Department of Justice comes down with, they've really gotten their target on the real estate industry itself.
Okay. Well, that's very good information, and I think that there's lots of agents out there, and there's somewhere slightly over 1 million agents in the United States. I'm not sure that all of them catch this, so they can get this kind of information on Lab Coat. We have about 45 seconds left, and maybe what we should do, because that won't be enough time to discuss the scenarios and some of these great paradigm shift questions that I found on your personal Facebook page that was either brought to light by yourself or by your partner. And I read those questions, and I thought they were very thought-provoking. And I think agents should go to your Facebook page. I think it's a third post down. If they search John Reilly on Facebook, and they can review those questions. They can start to consider thoughts and how that might impact their business, so that they're not blindsided. But I do agree with you that there's definitely some pressure. And what we always say is pressure equals diamonds, and competition breeds excellence. And so it just makes us all sharpen our sword, if you will, and bring our A game to the table.
I couldn't have said it better. That's perfect, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage everybody to go out there and read The Language of Real Estate and connect with John Reilly on Facebook.
As we say, aloha.
Aloha, John. Have a great evening.